case, he turns transparent.
Man, that's unsettling.
That's
to look
Who's
down.
riding
Oh.
Harandor? Who's riding Harandor?
Wait, so how long is he transparent for? That's really good.
Well, it's not full transparent. It sort of shifts and wavers a bit in places.
you see like his muscle and sinew and stuff, like.
Or is it like through him transparent?
A mix of both.
Oh, nasty.
You know, that effect will remain for perhaps a few days after you arrive in Crimson Peak.
I see what you ate for breakfast.
It's more like we can have Enrique just like sit on him with his hands outside, like you will see him like flying through the air.
Well, that's weird, but alright, sure.
All right, sure, that's not that bad.
Nope.
Yeah.
Actually, not bad at all.
Warwick is on speed, and Harandor is turning into a ghost. Yeah.
Existence.
And we'll be
Existence
on the
places.
dragons, and we'll be studying for this while. Just, I'll be talking to a Millicent and the sword about, so how do we make these, and you can read your books, because then we're also being useful.
Sure.
For the next week of studying.
Thank you, Minerva Sisters. If that's your last name, I secretly wish it is.
They wave to Enrican before heading back into their laboratory to talk to Talia.
So tell us about this boy.
Exactly. Girl talk! Slaps the door. 2 months later.
Well, the Cloud Dragon Sanson, as you head to Crimson Peak, will excuse herself and head back, presumably to wherever the hell she wants to go.
Inform your leader of the events.
Yeah, what has transpired here?
We bust away.
And you eventually arrive in Crimson Peak, completely bypassing the road and such, flying most likely over some of the fields in the Jasper fields. The corn-like fields that aren't meant to really feed anyone except the cattle that Jasper Fields is so known for. That pretty much
Man, that city is
exclusively
gonna get
fuels
screwed
Crimson
up.
Peak. And eventually, of course, you touch down in front of the wing-shaped gate to Crimson Peak. You are, of course, let inside without problems, as you are recognized, although Halldamir, Hirandor certainly gathers some very odd looks. Although it does appear that the transparency sort of takes away some of the attention from his discolored scales. If that's good or bad, who knows?
Just wait a couple of days, motherfuckers.
Well,
You're in for a surprise.
Once there, we will set up 2 meetings at least. 1 meeting with Beckenes and 1 with Scarron.
Yeah, we'll do the meeting with Scarron first then. No need to change maps because that's bothersome for just RP.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, we're
What?
bringing Warwick, by the way, because he's here,
Yeah.
Oh, you're
And also, that
Warwick.
wasn't to you, Sheep. That was to the dragon.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's
I
what
was
the fuck,
confused.
Scarron.
No skipping maps.
Fuck you,
Yeah,
sheep!
no.
Right.
I came here for...
Right.
Magic.
Imagine that you have entered Crimson Peak through the dimly lit hallways, chiseled into the mountain, eventually led into the larger open area, the trunk. That's not the right word. The shaft of the volcano. And perhaps asking someone to where you could find Scarron, you will of course be led, or at least directed towards the same hallway that leads to Scarron's zoo. Where you will inevitably stumble on him, or stumble into him even, as he seems to be walking somewhere else at this moment, and as you come into view, he tenses up quite significantly, turning around,
Nope.
going into a pose that Hiranda would very quickly realize is one of, well, sort of expected hostilities, as he growls to Hirando and then pretty much says to all of you, "What are you doing here? You should not have returned. I will need to defend myself if you intend what I think you intend. You will not get that silver..." I'm sorry, I did not expect you here so soon.
Where's the little one?
He cocks his head. he is in his cage as usual, unless he left it.
We need to see him.
We need to see him,
quick.
yes, please.
There's no time.
You may visit him if Hirandor stays where I can see him.
Come with us.
Well, it's translucent, so...
Come, Warwick. This is fine.
Don't, I'm not here to take up your father's bargain yet.
This is really not the time for that.
No, it really is not.
I completely forgotten that thing.
We've got more
The whole
pressing.
kidnap situation that's going on. Does Warwick have, like, a raised eyebrow or anything? Or
It's hard to tell, but maybe.
maybe.
What is this? I'm not sure where we are.
Why?
What are we doing here?
As Scarron tense and suspicious, to say the least. Although Hirondor's saying that he is not here to take up his father's bargain does help, him being transparent does not.
No, Silvers never lie, so you can trust
Would I
him.
lie
It's
to
fine.
you? Ghost. Like shifting in and out. Like, I
As
don't know.
Scarron leads you past his exotic exhibitions, positioning himself sort of between Hirondor and the one where presumably Centaura is being kept, and gestures towards, well, the one opposite, where you can indeed see a little old bronze dragon, who isn't quite as little as before.
Oh, he's buffed up.
Buff?
It's visible, but not by that much.
Oh,
Oh.
is that really Gavir, though?
Sort of, maybe Enrican size at this point.
Hmm.
Bit smaller, perhaps.
Okay. These red question marks tonight. Oh, there we go.
Where he's certainly still in his cell, as it were. Slightly changed from last time, although there isn't any furniture in there. It does seem like he has finally beat down the bush into a sort of bed shape for him, with a small pile of bones and other refuse neatly piled on top of each other. Of course, he does take a moment to actually see you through the like soundproof thick glass sheet, as he does brighten a bit with a smile on his face and heads towards where presumably the exit is, as he does indeed after a moment show up in the hallway, sort of waving to you as he approaches and says, "Ah, hello, I did not expect you to visit. I was just mere weeks of leaving this place. I figured you'd visit me in Groundcastle eventually, but is anything the matter?"
Graham moves to touch him.
He
Like his shoulder, grasp his shoulder in that sort of dramatic,
Yeah.
fast and strong way, you know, where it hurts a little
Is
bit.
it secret? Is it safe?
Sort of,
Yeah.
just like feeling if he's real.
as Graham reaches out to touch him, Graham certainly manages to touch him, although shortly after his hand is basically punched off in a sense, as Gavir takes a step back and also drops on all fours.
Graham looks over to Enrique and says, "He seems real."
Enrique looks at
As
him up
he
and down.
frowns a bit at all of you, then goes back to his more humanoid stance on two legs, frowning at Graham, and says, "I must apologize."
When we first met, Gavir, we had a plan to smuggle you out of Grandcastle that you did not approve of. Can you tell me what that plan was?
Involved the sewer and also, well, severely hindering Malone in his career chances. I still have moments of regret about that plan, but it did work out after all.
Enrique
So I
shakes his head,
suppose.
no, not the plan that worked. The plan that you rejected.
Oh, I believe it involved having me swallowed.
Enrique nods, looks over to Graham.
Graham nods again. He heard the same thing.
Not to laugh.
Must kill him. No, not quite.
I
almost
almost took a drink
of
cola then.
Mumbles sort of scratched his beard. "Have you seen a gold dragon recently?"
Gavir at this point must think we are completely crazy.
Yeah. Miranda's really trying not to laugh.
Well, I would say no, but on the other hand, I am currently... He sort of points to Randor.
That is platinum, a different color than gold, surely.
Well, he is also see-through, but...
It's a side effect of a potion.
Don't worry.
That's neither here nor there, really.
Temporary.
What's more important is that
sure.
you must return to Grand Castle immediately.
City's upheaval. Your sister needs you.
He will walk over and hand over the missive from Ace.
He frowns at you, then frowns at the missive. Well, the city being in upheaval was expected, of course. I was going to return, well, pretty much next week. Would take me perhaps 3 weeks to get to Grand Council.
Nope, it won't.
Speed.
Nope,
It will
Gadia
not.
thinks we are leaving in a few hours. And by leaving, I mean we're gonna arrive at Grand Castle in a few hours.
In a few hours, yes.
Well, this missive makes very little sense. Ace does know that I am in Crimson Peak. She has no reason to mention gold dragons.
Graham will look to Warwick and say, well, Warwick, you were given this letter.
He nods. I was given this letter by a woman who called herself Ace.
What did she look like?
He frowns a bit. It is difficult for me to describe humanoids, but she did have red hair that seemed average size. She seemed average size.
Looks over to Gavir. You had a talent for painting, I seem to recall. Could you perhaps do a quick sketch of Ace to show Warwick, see if this is the same person?
I do believe I have one of those in my files. I'll just have to retrieve them.
Looks
Go to
over as
go
he-
to the
as
bush.
Like the first thing he did was make a file cabinet in the sand.
Yeah,
Like any wild dragon.
you know, like
He's not a
my
savage.
filing
He
cabinet.
needs his filing cabinet.
It's quite an easy system. It has rocks and
Like numbers and letters and different categories too. How else would he know what he's owed in taxes and how many meals he has a day?
and the nutritional calculation of all the meals.
He's a nerd.
He's such a nerd.
Nerd dragon.
As Gavir will head back into his cell really, and does indeed return with a few pages of parchment, one of which includes a rather detailed sketch of Ace, as well as measurements, height, estimated weight, things like that.
Well, he's
I
been
took
very
them as he
thorough.
slept.
Impressive. All right.
So we look to Warwick.
Warwick inspecting the file, looking at the measurements and such, will look towards you and say, "It could have been her."
Oh, God damn it, Warwick.
She
The
did,
world
however, look
depends upon it.
slightly different. I do not usually make a mental note of the people I interact with. It does not seem worthwhile.
Look, if we look at the sketch, does it seem to
However-
be a very good sketch of Ace?
Yes.
Okay, so if she looks slightly different.
Well, I mean, she has been doing stuff. She was in Grandcastle, right?
Well, how does she look different? I think we should start with that at very least.
Well, according to Roig, he thinks he remembers her as having a bit shorter hair, perhaps a bit redder too.
It's a bit harder to make your hair redder.
What was Gavir's plan to meet up with Ace?
Oh, well, my plan was to just simply return to Grand Castle through Coppergate, enter the city, go towards the palace, and that was the entire plan. Ace did say she was going to go there to keep whatever riots might threaten to happen in control, as she has contacts to certain people, but, well, that apparently was not entirely successful, as I expected, but nothing should have done, well, any damages that could not be repaired in short notice.
Successful. Even if this is a trap, by following through with it, we will only be interrupting the training here for a week or two, or for a week, which should not really be enough to yield any significant changes now anyway. And you would be able to take care of some enemy.
Well, there is another problem, however. I have not yet heard news that my father has passed. I would want to avoid returning to the city before that happens.
Oh?
For multiple reasons.
Yes.
One of which is that if he does turn out to be more lucid than the rumors suggest, he might, well, take offense to my actions. This missive does look rather odd, however.
Oh.
Ace knows that I would not be easily persuaded to change any of my plans, as they do not have any flaws in them.
Actually, can't we just look at something else we have in Ace's handwriting?
Yeah, is the handwriting the
Like,
same?
Gavir is the kind of person who would be able to like, oh, that is slightly different. The T's are not crossed in the exact same way.
You see, on the G's,
I'm
she
sure
didn't
in his
press
files
down
he has
hard
like some
enough.
of her letter or...
Well, as a matter of fact, he does. And he can compare them rather easily now that you mention it. And it does not seem to be the same handwriting.
My God.
Close, but not quite.
So someone has captured Ace and tried to extract from her the location of Gavir. She has had gold dragons, and they're acting on that.
Oh, maybe. What if it's if all of the information leads that the gold dragons are in the Fae? They would probably think that we could find that out, and that the only way to get to the Fae easily enough would be to go get the plane skipper's shit.
Oh, that's a trap for us.
I'm thinking it could be a trap for us. Could be, but it's very elaborate.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. If the woman didn't really look like Ace, and her handwriting is not quite Ace's, and this is information that Ace most certainly would not mistake,
Provide us.
Yeah,
then
I'm
it is
thinking
certainly a trap.
But couldn't that be a good thing for us? Like, we have a lot of oomph right now.
Walking into a trap that we know we're going to spring is actually a pretty good thing. The Romans used
Then
it
again,
a lot
do we have
to their
time to
advantage.
fool around with that sort of thing? I'm not sure we do.
We gotta go
It could
there
also just be
anyway,
like
don't
to
we?
make us fuck around and not go to find the place that's actually important. Because we have another missive that we got, that Graham got, that says, oh yeah, you might want to hurry and go to that place. So maybe they're like, let's distract these people with sending them off to someplace else. It
Well,
would have
no,
to be
this is
someone
going
who
to the
actually
same
knows
place.
what's going on, you know?
No, this is what I'm talking about. It's going to the same place. I reckon that they think that we know that the golds are in the Fae. So they want us to go to the Shattered Shore to go get the plane skipper's shit so that we can go to the Fae. I reckon that's the whole play. Is getting us to go to the Shattered Shore. That's what I think is the play. Is springing a trap either on the Shattered Shore or when we go to the Fae to try and find these gold dragons. I think that's when the trap's going to be sprung, not in wherever it Ardent Crest.
Well, the question now is then, do we leave Gavir to it and hope that he can figure this out himself and meet him in Grand Castle in like a few weeks when we have gone to the Shattered Shore and then...
Yeah, I think though. I mean, we're going to use teleportation, aren't we? So
Yeah, we would teleport to
Time's
Shattered
up.
Shore and then use the other scroll I'm hopefully going to get from Beccanis to teleport to Grand Castle.
yeah, so hopefully we can get there before Gavir even finishes here, preferably.
How do you plan to go back to Grand Castle, Gavir?
I plan to go there in relative secret using a simple carriage.
Looks over to Scarron.
He frowns at you.
Anakin frowns back. If some sort of protection could be fashioned, if an attempt on your life is made, Gavir,
As much as I enjoy the relative fame I've gathered over the past few weeks, it would not be a good thing to be too closely associated to the Crimson Peak.
Anakin sighs. It's up to
I
you,
will, of
suppose.
course, arrange some protection in the form of human mercenaries. Humanoid, anyways. But
Not gnolls, I hope, because we have some.
there are companies of dwarves for hire in Crimson Peak that
Okay.
I've heard are very reliable.
That sounds good.
Sure.
We can trust a
Can-
dwarf.
Can Gavir hire them?
I
bring out
have
money?
plenty of disposable income.
Wonderful. Just
Oh, yeah,
make
you
sure
bought
you
like
have
a
it enough that when
He bought like a tavern, didn't he?
you're a great threat to them. But yeah, well, that's a good way to ingratiate yourself to dwarves.
It is.
Free beer. Well, all right.
Well, he's been
Oh.
warned. It looks like things are going okay here. I say we just leave him to it then.
Okay.
I mean, this seems to be a man. It's a
The,
weird thing. I don't know how to feel.
We
about
look
it,
at him
but,
and then we say, "The warning has been given. Your fate is now your own." Stalk. We'll look at him and say, "All right. Well, I suppose we'll leave it to you." On the other way around, then Gavir, and we'll try to meet you in Grand Castle in a few weeks' time. We aim to travel very quickly over the last few weeks leading up to the summit.
He nods.
Don't die on us.
It is likely that this missive is in fact a trap. It is no longer as efficient of a trap now that we are aware of it. However, there is one thing that does bother me. They do say that the southwestern wall is down. If any of the walls in Grand Castle are damaged for a period of time, that does mean that something is very wrong. The wall is topmost priority.
We did see pillars of smoke rise from the city when we passed it.
yes, it seemed to be in chaos. A dome of energy had been put around it as well.
Yes, that would be standard procedure for these matters. Standard as in something that really shouldn't be done, but something that is easy to do. And with my father's lack of clarity at the moment, it is no surprise that his advisors would take the most drastic of measures. Perhaps I will rethink my plan on how to reapproach Grand Castle, but I am sure things are not entirely out of control yet.
Like everything's
Frowns.
burning. Castles
you
are
don't
running
even know.
screaming
He knows
through the
better than we
streets.
do, I suppose. He's been there his whole life.
I suppose he does. He knows the city inside out. Is there like a small wayside inn or something on the approach to Grand Castle where we could potentially meet up in a few weeks?
There is no easy way to enter Grand Castle other than the main gate, of course. The sewer entrances
No, I mean
are
outside.
undoubtedly
Outside of the city.
out.
like before Coppergate or
So
something.
we would
like
meet
that.
up with you and then escort you back into the city.
Outside, well, on the main approachway, I would assume. The other ways near but not in the city are essentially mountainside.
We do know of a black dragon that could help out.
Blacks.
I do have to admit one last thing. My plans are based on these riots coming from the hard-to-please minority of the population in Groundcastle. I have not planned for the fact that these hard-to-please people would be aided by outside forces, as this missive attempts to suggest. It might yet be just another aspect of this trap, but if it is true, I am worried.
I wouldn't be surprised. We have been fighting against this ghostly threat of outside meddling for months now.
Ace herself used to be a part of a organization that could be considered to have interest in fueling such a riot, but I assumed that with her assistant that would not come to pass.
Unless there's someone else fueling it.
It certainly seems that the enemy would know of our... He sort of frowns a little bit. Not the enemy, but our opposition knows about our plans from the look of this letter. If nothing else, it shows us that they know exactly what we're doing.
Arkin nods. Yes, that is disturbing. They know of Gavir's plans. And that's what I'm thinking. They will try to intercept him and try to kill him, unless he can protect himself.
Perhaps, however, says him thinking, they don't know where he is. Hence their guess of gold dragons.
Maybe.
The idea that whoever wrote this missive knows of my plans is worrying, although there are two ways they could have found out about this. One, someone here in Crimson Peak could have recognized me, which some have, and went to tattle, as it were. Or the other possibility, which is a bit more worrying, would be that, well, Ace got captured. That, however, seems less likely than the former.
I doubt she would tell them much.
Perhaps she would, however, tell them about gold dragons.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That makes sense.
So we go to the shore, sort that out, teleport to Grand Castle, and then we infiltrate the city and start cleaning up that mess.
Start freeing Ace.
And then when Gavir shows up, we have positioned the city in a way that he can assume control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we arrive, we should really declare the Sterling Compact has arrived.
Rejoice, citizen of Grand Castle!
I mean,
the
at that
dread
point, we
has
might
arrived!
step out of a portal, right?
We will step out of a
So-
portal.
Yeah, we will literally. Yeah, it's gonna be badass.
The
We
dread
found
is
the tomb
here!
of taking control of the
Cooperate,
scepter of
and you will
worlds,
not
you
be
know.
harmed. Rejoice for the
Yeah.
dead watch over you.
But we must go to the sort of the foul north of place of death to claim unending power
Yeah.
first. So, yes, we shall make haste. I suppose you had a dark wizard to speak to. Yeah.
He's not that dark. He really likes destroying things.
Great guy for teleporting. He's like, I only prepare disintegration.
I can, however, load you into this cannon and shoot you there.
If I destroy a hole for the universe.
Maybe if I say that I can do that, he will like wet his pants in excitement.
Maybe.
Be like, yes, I need to see
I mean,
this.
if he really wants to, he can go with us. There's going to be lots of destroying going on, I assure you. But you know, let's go talk to him. I think this has like, yeah, Ace needs help, but Ace is tough as hell. So.
we will try to do our business in the Shattered Shore and then go quickly to Grand Castle and start cleaning that up. And then when he arrives, I don't know, send a white dwarf, you know, with With a keg
When he
of...
arrives, the city gates shall be open or gone. I think that is how we're gonna do it.
But basically,
Sure.
set up some sort of communication. Like, if we're in the city, send a message to this tavern and we'll go and pick it up.
We shall light the beacon fires.
Yes.
All right. Do you intend to use your enemy 5 or enemy 6?
For this, I think a 6, because we really want this done. And I'd rather have like working magic than it's like, oh, this discount scroll, I don't know.
Yeah, you end up in the elf capital.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, that's
No.
not helpful.
'Cause I would try
Don't
to
mess
cash
around
in
with
my 6 for
teleportation.
this.
You know?
It will be helpful either way. Just 5, of course. It's a 5. But if you use your 6, I think we'll do this rather quick. As it turns out, yes, Mechanus has his own way of teleportation even. It is a controversial way that not many people accept, hence why he doesn't have many requests to actually do it. But he assures Enrican that he has masterful control over everything he does, and all you have to do is stand on this large anvil and everything will be fine.
Oh,
I call it the Scream of Puppies teleportation spell. Hang on. Just takes out puppies and a dagger. It's a bit controversial.
That's why I imagine you stand on the anvil and a giant hammer flies so fast that when it hits you, the forces just explode the universe, so you get sent to a different place.
I will say that Beaconess has helped me in the past and has been very reliable, so I'm willing to trust it.
It's a 6. I can trust that.
I can trust a 6.
The Shattered Shore, a place I'm sure he admires.
He
We've seen the
will,
Shattered
however,
Shore.
say that he can't get you right into the Shattered Shore, since he does have to send you somewhere he knows about, or at least has a very incredibly good description of. He could perhaps send you to, well, the edge of the Shattered Shore, as he has been there before, but not into it. So, yeah, best he can do.
I have people waiting, probably like in Grimskill, like an adventuring team that are used to traveling in the Shattered Shore. So if you can get us there, that's like a huge city.
Oh, yeah, he can definitely get you.
Because there we have a
Grimskill.
ship and some climbers and dudes waiting that I have taken the liberty of contacting.
Alright, sure.
Well, he will then instruct each of you in turn, one by one, to step into his laboratory and onto the large metal slab that is in its center,
Come into my
The-
parlor.
with the different nozzles and pipes above it, some of them carrying some rather interesting stuff, such as liquid magma. But that won't be necessary for this particular spell, he promises you.
It is not it is not entirely necessary.
But it can be.
But
if
it-
you really want.
But it helps.
Anyway, teleportation through crazy thing.
Yes, with a flash of fire, he'll reduce each of you to ashes, seemingly, for those watching the ritual in
Next.
Crimson Peak. Pretty much. But as it turns out, you do arrive in Grimskill. Sort of just at the outskirts, appearing in a flash of fire.
As the fireball hits like
I imagine it's like staggered as well. As like poof, couple minutes later, poof, couple minutes later.
well, Enrican will
So this would be the point where I have to ask you: Do you make Warwick do this as well?
course.
Do you want to take him with you all the way?
Oric, would you not want to go?
Oh, he could.
Come help us, right?
He,
'Cause
he looks at the fiery blast of the ritual and says, "I have concerns."
you
Don't
know,
worry, it's a 6.
we will need you, I'm sure. So
No, if you ask him that nicely, he will in fact come.
nicely, huh?
I
Follow us,
like
Droken.
having a tandem with me that I can trust.
Yeah.
Hey.
Another tandem with me I can trust. You know what I mean. You're not really a tandem anymore. You're more like a divine oracle.
You're more like a god.
Right? Like a
You know, we're like
a
bros now.
scion.
We're like bros now. We're
An archon, even.
paladins.
Oh yeah,
God.
yes.
As you can appear
The archon of
in
rainbow.
the outskirts of Grimskill.
Archon of scales.
Judge
His
of
name
light.
tag's going to be longer than Anarkin's at this rate.
He needs it. He needs these titles. Archon of scales.
There's going to be a tome of names that Anarkin
Rainbow
and Graham
Truth.
have come up with.
You need like servants that go before you and just shout out your name. Heralds. That's what you need.
Oh, good God.
Make
What, they have
way!
a tome each?
It's where every
Like
time
ride in on white horses,
Yeah,
barding, and then have
every-
like trumpet.
every
They
time you
arrive
enter a
half an hour
city,
early.
every time you enter a city, it needs to be Prince Ali from Aladdin. You know.
Prince Ali, fabulous he. Ali above one. Alright.
Good God. Disney themed.
Right. And in
That sounds
Grimskill,
good.
entering the city, attracting plenty of concerned looks, both at the, well, you arriving in clouds of smoke and ashes and sparks, and the still somewhat transparent Hirando.
Oh shit! Yeah, I'm still transparent.
To the harbor.
Yeah,
Looks to the people.
and Mitchell will look to Graham and say, "Well, we are in your domain now, Graham. If you take the lead, I will follow."
Once I would have warned you against insulting people, as they would likely challenge you to fight over it, but I don't think that is an issue any longer.
I think that would be amusing, if not wise, for them.
Let us move.
I know
We're in
I've
haste.
spent.
My people should be waiting, though they might not expect us so soon.
And I will say I have also spent a good part of a century in these areas.
Yeah, some spears and halberds and weapons in general are raised at both the approaching Warwick and Hirando. Tentatively, not really anything suggesting immediate violence, just concern due to recent happenings, perhaps.
Don't have time for concern.
But that quickly changes as people, well, recognize Hirando. Maybe not his new looks, but definitely the armor he's wearing. And people certainly recognize Graham and certainly recognize what a grey usually means. You can enter the city proper with little difficulty. Graham perhaps having been given the name of a tavern or some sort where he is supposed to meet his people.
My people.
And a little bit of walking later, he does in fact meet his people. A interesting bunch of 5 people, ranging from brawny to, well, life,
American.
perhaps. From brawny to Anglican, sort of, yeah.
I believe they're adventurous here.
They stand out from the other patrons of the tavern, all armed, of course, which of course doesn't make them stand out, but peculiar to say the least. Adventurers, one might guess. They've agreed to help Graham. They have, as they say, visited the Shattered Shore multiple times, more often than most people still alive, anyways, and think that their expertise can help Graham immensely. They are absolutely certain. And perhaps they'll experience the odd adventure along the way. Although looking at them, all of you would quickly realize that in a fight against something that might challenge you, these guys would not be help.
Well, as long as they can keep themselves alive.
Yeah. Stay behind us.
Yeah.
Stay behind Anrican.
I mean, you know, Graham's not without, as he sort of sees them, you know, he'll just sort of, will walk over to them, you know, and sort of approach them. And as he does, he'll take out a bag of gold, 500 gold pieces, in fact, and like plunk it down on their table. He just looks to them and says, "We will sail in a few hours, I think. A little to get yourselves extra geared up for the trip.
They
Will not be an
pause.
easy one."
They pause at the bag of money. Then, quite well, what's the word? Not violently. Quite well. They nod definitely at Graham's
Eagerly.
suggestion. Eagerly, yes. Yes, all of those things.
Covetously.
Motivate adventurers
Greedily.
with money.
Indefatigably.
Surely they will have a list of things that they desire.
Yes.
Tell me your
They-
desire.
They jump up out of their seats, taking the bag of money, ensuring Graham that they are just going to buy supplies
Good.
and enjoy their payment, and they'll be ready, when Graham wants that on.
Good. We'll be at the boat
5 minutes.
now. Yeah, don't take too long.
Is the boat going to be big enough?
I do believe that Graham mentioned the need to transport one turn, but not two.
Well, if there's room for one, there's usually for two.
We can probably take
can-
turns flying.
They can share bunk.
No, we'll take
Squeeze
we'll
in.
take
I don't
turns.
think these boats have bunks. It's more like a longboat,
Oh,
right?
it's
So
longboats, yeah.
you would
Yeah.
sleep sort of on the benches.
Yeah.
We'll,
Yeah.
I
We'll-
do not
we'll-
sleep.
If there's no room, we'll take turns flying with the boat. I'm sure that can be sorted.
If that's the big problem now, then I don't sleep comfortably. Well, Mr. Dragon, that's not like a personal problem.
All right. So just perhaps half a day after arriving, you can head out to arrive the morning the next day.
So how do we find this place?
Is my transparency running out yet?
It'll be a few days still.
Ah, shit.
I mean, this morning we talked to the wizard.
It's true.
Now we're
Yeah.
in the other side of the island, sailing. So we're making good time, I think, so far.
Literally taken us 7 days to do a bunny hop.
Yeah, perhaps after 2 days of quick sailing, you can reach this point just at the edge of the shattered shore, which the adventurers suggest, because it's easy enough to hop onto the first plate of the shattered shore there.
And could you give us a little bit exposition what this place looks like?
I sure can. I can give you even more than that. I can give you a picture.
Is
Picture that is perhaps just as you expected, but might provide something to look at least.
Drum roll.
I remember when Jeep and I discussed this place.
Whoa.
Yes, this is exactly what we discussed.
The exposition will be given to you sort of in character as well, although I'm as the adventurers describe what you might expect, which I will also describe to you. As the Shattered Shore is, well, a bit of a misnomer, because it's not really a shore anymore. The shore has retreated all the way back to the Fullwood. The shore itself are a series of plates of floating islands covered in, well, forests and vegetation. Some of them, however, left still completely empty and barren. They are said to be an enlightening experience for anyone visiting there, mostly due to the fact that, as the adventurers tell you, they are charged with magical energies, and not the good kind either. They believe that the entire thing is floating because it's cursed by some wrathful goddess, without wanting to mention any names next to the term. Other rumors that you would, of course, know about, however, suggest that it is simply a almost natural phenomenon that the entire thing is flying now. Something related to, well, just a massive force, a massive magical, divine or not, is irrelevant in that question. Still having effects, even the 1,000 years later as it actually happens. effects such as, well, making the wildlife rather more strange, making the island float, making the vegetation sentient, some say. You should not visit the Shattered Shore without knowing what you're heading into. And knowing what you're heading into is impossible, because the Shattered Shore are covered in weirdness, in a sense. It's not entirely undiscovered, but definitely undocumented. Sailing there, you get a nice side view of the entire structure. The islands at the end of it floating significantly higher than the other ends, but it does seem like the islands are sort of still being kept at least close together, as if they were connected by some elastic string or something. Some of them show signs of the vegetation having built natural bridges through vines that grow horizontally rather than vertically, and trees that grow upside down, and things like that. But most of them are free-floating, presumably slowly moving, and not easy to traverse according to your adventure events. The entire area is definitely as large as you can see on the map here. It's not an easy thing to traverse all of it, especially trying to find something specific in this mess of islands and forests. Difficult.
So really, it's a giant battery, which is what we need. So, Sheep, could I perhaps ask you a bit selfishly, sort of on the world map, the army was huge, so it probably wasn't like very localized, but where kinda were we when the whole thing exploded and destroyed,
probably
this massive area?
Probably mostly in this sort of area.
All right. So this all here is mostly collateral.
Yeah.
Well, that's where Graham will think to go, though he doesn't really know. Like, we're looking for this dragon. Do we know where his lair is? Do we have a way to find out? I think Millicent was like,
Millicent was like, she definitely hinted at that.
Let's see. Communing with the blade, Graham would get the feeling that she may be able to help, although it's sort of difficult considering that she can only currently communicate with vague emotions. But she's certainly sending the emotion of, yes, I have an idea.
I guess we're going warmer, colder.
I guess.
Yeah, Graham could expand the use of the once a day 20 to maybe get a better hint.
Sure, let's do that. That seems like a good use.
Right. The sword, or rather a Millicent's spirit that you stuck into the sword, will then be able to tell you that presumably the easiest way to find the Great Copper's lair would have been to ask one of the Coppers, as they supposedly have significant family ties and family secrets even. With that not really being a possibility unless you find like a wilder copper who happens to be part of that exact family, the next best thing would be not exactly as you suggested a hot or cold thing, but trying to find a concentration of magic, because the Great Copper is sort of gotten the reputation of being the only Tenem who had severe and significant arcane prowess. Sorceress, even. Supposedly, he didn't initially, but eventually developed these powers. And, of course, as Coppers are, the blade says somewhat haughtily, perhaps, he experimented without restraint, and that probably left some marks on the land. If you find those marks, you probably find his lair rather easily, too.
Well, if we explain to our adventurer friends what these marks are, maybe they have seen something like that somewhere on their many journeys here. Because this layer isn't a new thing.
Well, they can tell you they've seen some weird shit on the shore here, and knowing exactly what is a mark and what's not is difficult for them to tell. However, they are pretty sure that these marks, as you described them, would be pretty, well, identifiable, meaning that they haven't seen any, meaning that those marks are probably further out, like around this area. They've mostly explored this sort of area.
That's where we have to go then.
Well, I suppose we have to. I hope these adventurers are very sturdy.
They've survived multiple trips in here. So at least they can hold their own, hopefully.
Okay.
We don't need to babysit them. But, they're here as guides. Not as firepower.
Yeah, they can assure you that they can survive the land and the environment just fine. But most of their expeditions were aborted because they saw, well, opposition on the next island over, pretty much. Things that they didn't agree with and didn't think they could deal with.
There's no point in starting with this one if it's not here, so, you know.
Right,
let's go to the outer ones.
If you simply want to start climbing, then you can certainly do that.
Climbing?
Yes, you're going to have to climb up
these. We have dragons.
Yeah, but we're not taxis, man.
Yeah, the two dragons would have to carry a grand total of, well, 7 people plus the Edaling. They could certainly do that, but not
at the top. That's fine.
But not for any long distance trips.
Just up and down.
Up and down would work.
I mean, these flakes are pretty huge. You probably don't need to. Just like
I think there will be times. Yeah.
How else would we get up on them?
We can't reach them from the water if they're hovering.
Well, he did say that there's like connecting like vine bridges, basically. Like the nature itself has created.
Yeah, there are also smaller islands in between that could be used to hop onto, pretty much. You do have to be creative to traverse these islands if you can't fly, thanks to 2 dragons. But those 2 dragons certainly make it easier.
Or I guess one of the reasons I brought you. You could fly. It's so useful.
He mumbles to himself.
Like, we can do a few trips. It's fine. We can even rest at the top a little bit if you need to.
Alright. Let's do this in the form of a sort of montage, I would suggest, rather than having you, like, go through to every single shard and look for it through some means. To summarize, how does your search look? How does each of you contribute to it? How perhaps do you do it? What do you look for? Those things.
Well, Anarkin is a master of the mystic arts, and we are looking for a big source of magic. So, tracking that seems to be his chief contribution to this.
Alright, that would be a magical skill check.
Yep. Let's see, level, ability mod, and skill. Yes.
And a background that applies.
Yes. Might re-roll that actually. 6. Yeah, I can do better. Yeah, it's better.
Okay.
Hirandor used to be a wilder And, you have to sometimes look for dens, and there's obvious signs of what type of dragon lives in certain dens. So, it makes sense that they're going to leave the usual telltale signs, and I think the marks will be easy enough to see if he can just find where the dens are. He's used to it, to looking at those. Well, used to be, at the very least. That's my idea, flying around.
So flying around looking for the dens of other worlders.
Oh, like stereotypical copper kind of dens.
Okay.
Because, yeah. I believe it would look something like... Oh, that one.
Okay. We'll resolve these in a moment.
Mauled by a badger or something.
He pokes his head into somewhere and get a badger stuck to it.
Graham possesses a mighty sword that is probably better at finding this than any of us. So it can only speak to him through emotion. So what he's going to be doing is attempt to interpret his own emotional state in order to understand how a militant is trying to help. So I would basically sense motive myself to know what my feelings mean in how to find this place.
Okay, you sense motive yourself. I like it.
That makes sense in a strange way.
Okay.
Hit a 21. It's fine, I guess.
All right. Enrican is looking for the source of weird concentrated magics. And he does think that he feels a number of sources, in fact. Some of them stronger, some of them less strong. As maybe Hirondo returns from his findings, proclaiming that he believes he has found the den. It smells like magic to him, and it looks like a den. Probably a copper den, even. Which does sort of fit to one of the points that Enrican might have found. Meanwhile, Graham, sort of trying to identify what the hell the blade is trying to tell him, doesn't get very far, because most of the emotions he senses from it is that the blade is frustrated that Graham is so inept.
I'm incredibly frustrated right now. I have a bad feeling about that one.
He also feels the feeling of a militant undoubtedly suggesting through the method of emotions that she could be a lot more of a help if you found a way to get her out of this frame sword.
Talia. We will grant her restless spirit power enough to sustain itself as an undead wight. But for now, we need to find the place to get that power. So,
So, all in all, you do manage to track down a den, at least. But trying to investigate said den, will lead you to this place. If you could copy your tokens to the Shattered Shore map. The den entrance is sort of hidden in between foliage, but it is an obvious tunnel down into the island. To specify which island you're on, sorry, you have to go back to the world map. You would be on this here island.
This cave look doesn't.
Which one?
Promise.
This one.
But the little you are here one there.
Oh yeah, that's a good
idea. We know this cave.
Yeah, it's reused assets, TM.
Yep.
But all in all, the den has the signs of, well, magic experimentation of sorts. In the form of just latent energies, really. Just flitting about. Some of the vegetation looks slightly more alive than it should. Things like that, basically. And as you head down, with Warwick, who I didn't copy, you are met with sounds, first of all, as you head down into this tunnels. Sounds of what could be perhaps claws scraping on the floor of this cave, but multiple. And before you really have time to adjust, I suppose, these scraping sounds do show themselves, or rather the sources of them do show themselves. In the form of these guys. As what you see here in this den, what was undoubtedly once a copper tendon's den, is not a copper tendon, but rather strangely crab-like creatures that stop their skittering for a moment as they turn towards you, their claws raised in aggressive gestures. As they do seem to speak between each other in a language that none of you can really make out. And shortly after, the smaller ones with blue sort of exoskeletons start waving their claws in unison, and the chaotic magic that flits in your direction, as they definitely are casting spells, and hostile ones at that.
So is there any reason we don't just leave?
I think this is like, well, Anrikin at very least with his 29th, or could be a possible spot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a continuation way. Is there any signs that anyone else has come through here?
Signs that someone has recently come through here. If you could give me a quick check for that.
I don't know. Graham has in his time as a thing when he came here, he's tracked quite a few Tenem going through places. So you'd look for telltale signs, tail scrapings, sort of things. Wilders generally aren't the smallest ones, so.
I think I'd go with the same idea as well.
Okay, sure. Quick look about as these strange crab people are doing their dances. Well, as it turns out, both of you do see rather significant claw marks, some of which seem old, but some of them might be rather recent.
Maybe I can see something.
Just no background.
No. I mean, I'm traveling many roads, so I could potentially track things. I've done that before.
You could also give me another magical skill check while you're at it.
Okay, sure.
We just don't want to waste our resources. If we're probably going to fight those, 10 of them who came here, right?
33.
Man,
is that the magical one? Well, this was one of the points where Enrican felt a significant source of magic. Now that he's getting closer, it does seem to be a significant amount of magic that does not seem to be coming from, the top of the island or the inside of this cave, but rather deep down into the island.
Okay. Well, he will communicate that.
Sounds like we're going through these things.
Yeah. So,
all right.
To battle.
We're like, peace, we just want to pass through.
Where was that roll?
Parlay?
2 rolls ago.
Yeah, I mean, look at me. I have a bonus of 12, I think. But apparently my 2 best rolls became 12. So
A bonus of 8, and I got 19.
Where did I put my escalation die? There it is.
I have no idea how dangerous these things are.
Neither do I.
But they
Well,
use
I'm
magic.
hoping not
We
much.
don't have Talia here, so I guess we wanna.
At the sight of them, your adventurer friends certainly make sure they're out of the way.
Good.
Good.
What about
Well,
Warwick?
look.
What does he do? How does he work in this?
Well,
Does he hang out? Does he fight by himself? Like,
he certainly looks like he'll fight with you if you want him to.
oh, I mean, don't die, Warwick.
Don't piss you out on us now.
These guys are statted, yes.
Hooray!
I'll just make him up as I go.
Now, some tokens I will have to take a break for because I didn't stat them because
Fireballs,
I thought I did.
fireballs. Explode the entrance. Oh,
Each one
let's
has
see
a
what
scroll
happens.
of disintegrate.
Well, they rolled.
Oh, scrolls as loot, it's the worst.
They rolled really evenly. But it does look like Hirondo is going first.
We don't see them in this counter.
Now you do.
Oh, oh my.
Wow. All right, that's pretty great. I'll start with my cold breath on the two that are kind of clustered together nearest me.